What's up, guys? Artem MMA Analysis here. Super excited for this card. We've got Dana White's Contender Series 2022 Week 5. I've also sorted out my audio problems that I had for quite a while, so I'm super happy about that too. But let's just talk about Week 4 real quick. I went 5-0 on Week 3. I've gone 4-1 on Week 4. I'm pretty happy with that result. I think it is pretty good, not gonna lie. I mean, I picked Sadikov to win. I picked Cowan to win. I did pick Jack Cartwright to win, and then I picked Ribeiro and Ribovic. All 5 winners got a contract. Pretty happy for Jose Johnson because that guy's been putting in work. He may have a 15-7 record, but the level of competition that Jose Johnson has built that record against is actually pretty crazy. So pretty happy for him. Unfortunate for Jack Cartwright. He looked okay, but Jose Johnson's wrestling and grappling really impressed me. He's definitely improved it a lot since he fought Ronnie Lawrence. But let's get into this card, man. We've got the main event headlined by two heavyweights. If you guys don't know, the UFC really needs heavyweights. The UFC also really needs flyweights. So you've got both of those on this card. I think whoever wins the Fahaya versus Santos Aguilar fight gets a contract. I think whoever wins the Nevis versus Parkin fight also gets a contract. But we'll talk about those later. That's the end of this intro, and I hope that you guys enjoy the breakdown and you enjoy the fights next Tuesday. And now we go to the first fight of the night. This is my second time recording it because I just spent way too much time in the breakdown. This is a women's strawweight fight. Denise Gomez taking on Rayanne Amanda. I'm picking Denise Gomez. She's the pick. I'm just going to say that out straight up. I think she's the better fighter almost everywhere in this kind of fight. But let's just talk about Denise Gomez real quick. So she was 0-1 when she fought a debuting girl, won that. And then she took on a 3-0 girl, another 3-0 girl, another 3-0 girl, and she took on a 12-8 very experienced girl in Invicta and won that fight by TKO in the third round. Rayanne Amanda, on the other hand, just has not been fighting the same level of competition that Denise Gomez has. And that's just a fact. Like, she lost to a girl that was 3-1, you know, we move on, but then she took on a girl that was 0-1, 0-5, 0-0, and then 0-0 again, you know, and at that point she was 9-5, 10-5, you know, she was an experienced girl with a lot of experience, and she was fighting that level of competition. I think that's just a little bit of a red flag to me. I think Denise Gomez on the feet's the better fighter. She throws a lot more volume with a lot more power. Rayanne Amanda does throw a lot of volume as well, but I would just say, like, it's just not as good striking. I guess you would quote unquote that one there, but I think that Rayanne Amanda's got good jiu-jitsu and she does have a few submissions in her career. She's got a couple of really quick armbar submissions, which is pretty impressive to be honest, but I don't think Denise Gomez is going to fall for any of that. The takedown defense of Denise Gomez, I'm not too sure where it's at, but Rayanne Amanda's ability to get to the fight to the ground is also somewhat questionable as well. But when she does get it to the ground, she does have good jiu-jitsu. But even then, Denise Gomez does have a good grappling game as well, and she potentially could be even better in that game as well anyway. But I think that the fight potentially could take place a lot against the cage, a lot on the maybe even on the stand-up as well. But no matter where it is, I think that Denise Gomez is just the bigger, stronger girl. I think she's going to win the grappling exchanges. I think she's probably going to win. He's definitely going to win the striking exchanges. I'm picking Denise Gomez, and I'm actually picking Denise Gomez by ground and pound TKO because she's got 4 wins by KO in her career. She's got a few by ground and pound. I'm liking that out of that. We didn't see a contract given to the last women's strawweight fight, Karolina Wojcik. I think that these girls are going to come out to fight. I think that Gomez is probably going to look for a finish in this one here, and that's kind of her bread and butter, as she's got really good ground and pound. So even if she does crack Amanda on the feet, I see eventually she gets it to the ground, uses the ground and pound, and just at that point Amanda's potentially, you know, like, she's just not in the fight anymore, and Gomez wins by TKO. So I'm picking that. I'm picking Gomez by a finish in this one here. She's just the better fighter, and I think she's got more power on the feet as well. Her ground and pound is solid. She does have a few ground and pound finishes. I don't want to spend too much more time on this breakdown. I think I've said everything I need to say, and we'll just move on to the next one. And now we've got a pretty tough fight to predict, and I think that there's actually quite a few people on the side of Cameron Saaiman, but I'm going to be going with Josh Wan Kim, and it's mainly just due to quite a few things, really. I think that Josh Wan Kim's the better striker out of the two. I think that Cameron Saaiman is very hittable on the feet from what I've seen as well. Cameron Saaiman, also at only 22 years old, has got a pretty unpolished skill set. He's a lot less experienced than Josh Wan Kim. And you might say that and be like, well, they've got 6 fights and 5 fights. Like, well, how can you say that? But that's because Josh Wan Kim has got a very extensive amateur record. He went 15-1 as an amateur. He's also got a brother that went 15-1 as an amateur as well. And his one loss was a split decision to Jesse Strader, who did end up in the UFC, but had a very unsuccessful run. But that was in 2016, I can forgive that. But yeah, since then he has been fighting somewhat decent competition, you know, like his one loss is to illegal blows, and it's such a weird one because his opponent milks it, and then after he's throwing the illegal blows, um, yeah, it's just a weird one anyway. We'll just move on from that. But yeah, so yeah, Josh Wayne Kim, 5-1. He's probably undefeated. He should be 6-1. Let's be honest. But it is what it is. He's got a very extensive amateur record. I like the experience that I've seen out of him. I like the fact that he has been fighting on the amateur scene for a while. Cameron Simon, a lot of his fights in EFC have blocks behind a paywall, which is a shame. But he's taken this fight on it seems like it's short notice, but it's not really. Like, it's kind of a weird one. This fight was actually announced probably about 3 or 4 weeks ago, but at the time, Cameron Simon still had a fight booked against this guy, Sindayal Manangala, who was 8-7 at the time. And I thought they were just going to cancel that fight and he's just going to fight Josh Wayne Kim with a 4-0 record. But he just fought Sindayal anyway and beat him a couple of weeks ago. So I think that's pretty cool. He's been active. He's been a little bit more active than Josh Wayne Kim, at least recently as well. He's fought 2 times in 3 months. And Josh Wayne Kim's fought 2 times in 4 months. So both guys have been active. But Cameron Simon fought 2 weeks ago. So he's going to be fresh off a training camp, moving into another one. I do think Josh Wayne Kim's just a more polished fighter all around. You know, Josh Wayne Kim's a great striker. He's got KOs on his record. He's got submission on his record. He's a really well-rounded fighter. I think that he throws less volume than Simon, but I think he's the more powerful striker out of the two, and I think that his shots are going to be the ones that are just doing more damage and playing more on the judges' scorecard, maybe hurting Simon at points as well. It's also worth noting that so Cameron Simon's only 21 years old, 21 and a half years old, so this kid's going to end up in the UFC at one point. He's a little bit older than me, and he's already in Dana White's Contender Series, so I'm pretty happy for him. He also does have an amateur record. I should point that out before I close it out. Where he went 5-0 as an amateur, starting when he was like 15 years old in 2015. But yeah, that's pretty crazy. We've got a 17-year-old fighting on Dana White's Contender Series in a few weeks' time as well, which is even crazier. But yeah, I think Cameron Simon, he's got a good skill set. He's got a better grappling game than a striking game, in my opinion. But I think that even the Josh Wayne Kim is just so experienced. He's been fighting and training alongside some really high-level competition. Josh Wayne Kim's been training with Alexander Volkanovski in the past. He won't be training him for this camp, but he has trained with Volkanovski in the past. So he's been training with high-level guys. He's been traveling around the world to train. I believe he actually went to Australia to train with Volk. But yeah, I'm picking Josh Wayne Kim. I think he's the better striker. I'm actually going to pick him to win by KO on the feet over Cameron Simon. He's got a couple of KOs on his record. I think he hits harder than Simon. I think he's just going to, yeah, just win the fight on the feet, really. So I'm going to be picking Josh Wayne Kim by KO. Hopefully there wasn't too much rambling in that prediction. It did go for about 4 minutes, so I apologize for that. But there's a lot to say about this matchup. There's a lot of unknowns about Simon, really. But I think that just from what I've seen, he's just a little bit less polished than Wayne Kim due to the experience and just maybe just due to the level of competition that Wayne Kim's been training with and somewhat fighting as well compared to the competition Simon has been fighting. So I think Simon's going to end up in the UFC at one point, but I feel like it might just be a little bit too much too soon. I'll be picking Josh Wayne Kim to win by knockout on this one here. Probably, I would say, but maybe like second round knockout. And now we move on to the next one. We've got Fahaya taking on Jesus Santos Aguilar. And this is kind of a weird one, you know, because I looked into this one and I'm seeing a lot of people picking Jesus Santos Aguilar. And I don't know what the odds are because I record these on the Tuesday night, actually after the week before. So I'm recording this before the odds are even out. But I'm thinking Jesus Santos Aguilar might actually be the favourite in this matchup, but I am going to be picking Fahaya to win the fight. It's somewhat of a striker versus grappler matchup because Santos Aguilar will definitely be looking to initiate wrestling exchanges, and I feel like Fahaya is going to probably favour taking this fight or keeping this fight on the feet. You know what I mean? We're just going to look into it right now. Only 42% picking Fahaya on Tapology. Maybe that line flicks because only 183 votes, but more people picking Santos Aguilar. I don't mind it, but if you actually look at the level of competition that this guy's been fighting, it is very high level. He recently beat a guy that was 6-1, 8-3, 6-2, and then before they just fighting guys that were 5-2 and 2-0. And at that time, he would have been like 2-1 taking on a guy that was 2-0. So I don't blame that level of competition whatsoever. But I do think Fahaya is going to win this one here. If you guys don't recognize the name, he's actually fought on Dana White's Contender Series in the past. And he took on Kilang. And Kilang's now doing some pretty big things in the Road to UFC tournament that's going on. Kilang won the first round of Road to UFC. And then the second round will be after UFC 280 the day after. Before that, though, he hasn't been fighting great competition. But he did beat a guy that was 9-4 before Dana White's Contender Series. And the fight against Kilang was super close. And Kilang, as I said, he's doing great things right now. I believe he got a super fast finish in his first round, in his first fight. But first fight of road to UFC. But yeah, this was a tough fight to kind of score because if you actually look into it, Keelan in the first round knocks down Erison Fahaya, lands more strikes, so he wins that round. And then the next two rounds were scored to Erison Fahaya, even though he landed less and threw less as well. He landed 10 of 37 significant strikes, 18 against 18 of 41, and then he landed 8 of 29 significant strikes against 10 of 31. But he did have a little bit more control time, as he did shoot for a takedown and get it. But it was a weird fight, you know what I mean? It was a close fight. It could have gone either way, and I think that Erison Fahaya is probably going to win this one over Jesus Santos Aguilar, as I just said. Jesus, what he brings is he's a good grappler. On the feet, you know, he's not, I wouldn't say he's the greatest striker in the world, but he doesn't mind striking. I would say he's definitely the better jiu-jitsu artist out of the two for sure. Most of his wins come in by submission, and if they don't, he wins them by decision. But what I don't necessarily like about him is when he shoots for a takedown, he doesn't really set them up too much. He kind of shoots from out of range, I guess you could say, or out of like wrestling range. He does have a win over Edgar Chairez, who recently fought on Dana White's Contender Series as well, which is a pretty good look now because Edgar Chairez had a really good fight. But it's just a weird one. I think he's just, his range in general just isn't that great. Like, he doesn't have the greatest range on the feet. He doesn't really have the greatest range when he's looking to wrestle as well. It's kind of a weird one. He's got great wins on paper. They really are great wins, and he's a guy that you can get excited about. But I do think Erison Fahaya is just going to have a somewhat favourable matchup in this one here. I think he's going to be able to defend the takedowns of Aguilar, as he defended 5 of 7 takedowns from Keelan, who is a pretty good grappler himself. And he brings a pretty exciting style to the game. You know what I mean? He does land pretty heavy shots. He does not really throw too much volume as he did in the Keelan, but he was throwing and he was landing with decent power as well. His takedown defense isn't the greatest at all, but he did defend a lot of takedowns against Keelan, which is a pretty good look. And I think that he should be able to defend against Aguilar, who does, as I said, kind of shoot from far out, which is a weird sort of a situation, really. I think Fahaya wins the fight on the feet. I think it probably does go the distance unless he finds a KO at some point, but I think Fahaya's going to keep the fight on the feet, win another decision. You've never seen anyone win 2 fights on Dana White's Contender Series and not get a contract, so I think if Erison Fahaya wins a decision over Aguilar, he will get into the UFC, because the UFC needs flyweights anyway. I feel like the winner of this fight in general is just going to get a contract. As I said, though, I'm super impressed with the competition of Santos Aguilar, but I'm just not super impressed with the style that he fights. He struggles to kind of just find his range in general, and against a fast starter like Erison Fahaya, I think Erison Fahaya is going to start too fast and throw just a little bit more volume, throw a little bit more power, and just win on the feet. I think he's going to defend the takedowns as well and win that way. I'm going to go Erison Fahaya by decision, potentially an underdog. As I said, I don't know the odds right now, but I think that there's a good chance he is. And now we've got Amir Gogolati taking on Darius Flowers, and yeah, this is actually a really good fight. I mean, 92% of people on Tapology are picking Gogolati, but I feel like this fight might be a little bit closer than that. I think maybe even the betting odds potentially could be super wide. As I said, recording this before odds come out, but I think potentially even Gogolati could end up being a super big favourite over Darius Flowers, and I think that Darius Flowers potentially, he's got a path to victory here. He really does. But let's just talk about Amir. Oh, no. Let's talk about Darius Flowers first, and then I can talk about Gogolati. In my opinion, Darius Flowers is the better offensive wrestling out of the two, and he's got more power. But I think that's kind of all he's got, really. He is 5'9", and he has been fighting at middleweight recently as well. He's got one really good win over Tim Hiley, where he knocked him out, who fought on Dana White's Contender Series. I think he even fought on Dana White's Contender Series twice. He fought a guy that was 4-1, 10-4 as well, since making a return after about a 9-month gap. A 9-month break, I guess you could say. And after that 9 months, he just started taking the sport a lot more seriously. You can kind of tell that he started showing up a lot more in shape. He kind of started to have better technique. He was landing with his power a bit more as well, and he was finding those knockouts over good guys like Tim Hiley. And I'm glad that he's getting the opportunity. I have had my eye on Darius Flowers, actually just since recently, since he beat Tim Hiley. But I think that might be a little bit too much too soon. You know, he only returned to the sport a few months ago, and he has been looking a lot better. He has been looking a lot more in shape, and he's going to be dropping down to 170 from middleweight here as a guy that's only 5'9" compared to Amir Gogolati, who's 6'2", and will probably have a pretty distinct reach advantage, which he's going to be able to utilize as well. Darius Flowers is primarily a boxer with heavy hands, but he does have wrestling in the back pocket as well if he looks to use it, and I think he will against Gogolati here. But now let's talk about Amir Gogolati. This guy's got a lot of tools in the tool set. Sorry, team. He's a really good kickboxer. He throws a lot of kicks. He throws his hands as well, quite well. And he's a good striker. He does have pretty good jiu-jitsu as well. But I would say the wrestling advantage definitely does go to Darius Flowers. Gogolati does have a couple of submission wins in his career. 3 of them, in fact. But most of the time, he does want to finish the fight on the feet. 8 knockouts to his name. And most of which come into pretty good competition as well. I am actually quite impressed with the level of guys that he's been fighting. 15-5, 10-5, 23-7. Did lose to Henderson Fahaya, who I believe is now fighting on Eagle FC and a former UFC fighter. And yeah, and then he's kind of been beating guys pretty quickly. A lot of his wins come in the first round. A lot of KO power, obviously, but he does have pretty good technique to his strikes as well, to his shots, and he does throw, as I said, with power, and he does have 8 KO wins to his name. Darius Flowers, a little bit too much too soon in my opinion. I would have rather seen Darius Flowers maybe fight next year and get a couple more wins in the regional scene, maybe fight for the LFA title or something like that, and build up his name a little bit more, build up his resume. But I feel like he's just jumping into Dana White's Contender Series a little bit too much too soon. I feel like Darius Flowers got heavy power in the hands, and he does have an opportunity to catch Gogolati, but I think Gogolati's going to fight the fight at range, uses kicks to keep Darius Flowers honest, and uses boxing as well and as an exchanges if he needs to. Darius Flowers, as I said, there is a path to victory there, and I will talk about that now, and that is if Darius Flowers can take Gogolati down, and I do believe that Darius Flowers does have the ability to score a takedown on Amir and Gogolati, but I don't think that he's going to be able to hold him down, because when on bottom, Gogolati's going to be threatening submissions, he's going to be working to get up, he's not going to accept being on the bottom like some opponents may, and I think that, you know, if Darius Flowers is able to wrestle for 3 rounds, I think that he could find the win. Maybe if Darius Flowers is able to land something pretty heavy with his boxing, he could be able to win. But Amir Gogolati has been running through a lot of competition recently. A lot of first round KOs, a lot of first round finishes, and I think he's going to get a pretty quick finish in this one as well. I'd say first or second round, but Darius Flowers isn't really guys that count out too much in my opinion. I think he's a good prospect as Flowers, but as I said, I think it's just too much too soon. He recently made a return to the sport about 3 months ago, and he has looked a lot better than he did a year ago. But I think that Emiran Gogolati is the more UFC ready fighter of the two, and that's why I've got to go with Emiran Gogolati by KO in this matchup here. And now we've got Eduardo Neves taking on Michael Parkin, and this is such a weird fight. You know, Eduardo Neves 5-0 as a professional, Michael Parkin 5-0 as a professional. But Michael Parkin's got a lot of amateur experience as well. With what's that? Is that 8 fights as an amateur, 7-0-1 as an amateur, and he did draw with this guy who has actually started to make a name for himself in the professional ranks. He's 2-0 at the moment, but I'm picking Eduardo Neves, and I actually think that Eduardo Neves is going to get it done pretty early. He's a brawler, is what Neves does, and he likes to draw his fighters into a brawl, which can end up getting him caught, but it hasn't not worked for him recently. You know, he's got a lot of first round finishes. I believe he's on a first round finish streak. He's on a 3-fight first round finish streak, all in about a minute. So this fight potentially could be over within a blink of an eye. Michael Parkin, on the other hand, he just hasn't fought good competition like at all, and it's just so questionable about how good he's gonna be when he shows up. Like, he made his pro debut against a guy that was 1-10. You know, that's alright to get started, and then 2-17, and then 2-3, and then 7-7, and then 6-9. Like, he's never tested himself, and that's not really what I like to see. Out of Eduardo Neves, at least when he made his debut, he fought a guy that with experience, with a losing record, as you do, built himself up a little bit, took on a guy that was 2-0 when he was 2-0, then a guy that was 1-0, and then in LFA, took on Andre Vieira, knocked him out in the first round, he was 5-0, and I believe even in that fight, Neves was a very slight favourite in that one. I was going to say an underdog, but I was going to lie to you guys. I apologize. He was a slight underdog in that one, but that's not really the point. I just think Eduardo Neves, the level of competition that this guy has been fighting is just a lot better, and even then, he's beating them a lot easier than what Michael Parkin is beating his opponents, and he's just beating guys with losing records. Even as an amateur, he was fighting guys with losing records, but he was fighting okay guys. But like, it's just I don't know what to think of Michael Parkin. I don't know what his skill set's going to look like. He's potentially the better wrestler out of the two, but I think that Eduardo Neves is just more savage. You know, I think he's going to come out, I think he's going to brawl, and I think he's just going to find a KO on Parkin. It's just hard to get a read. It really is, and it's my full honesty with you guys. Neves, he's fought in LFA twice. He definitely is easy as tape to find. You can watch that fight, and he looks great. He's a fast starter. He's got heavy hands. He likes to brawl. And I think that Parkin might get drawn into a brawl with Neves, and Neves is going to end up knocking him out in the first round, and that's actually just that's my breakdown. It really is. But I think that, yeah, Neves is a very competent striker. I think he's the better striker out of Michael Parkin and Neves. Maybe the better wrestler out of the two is Michael Parkin, but it's hard to tell what's actually going on. And yeah, Michael Parkin does have good ground and pound as well, but he's gonna have to get the fight to that point, and I don't think he is. I think Neves is just gonna brawl with him and knock him out in the first round. As I said, just so hard to get a good read on this guy. I mean, all guys have 5 KOs. This fight's not going the distance, for sure. But, that's my breakdown. I know it's a terrible breakdown on the where. If you really want to know, Eduardo Neves, I think, just lands with power. Michael Parkin is somewhat heavy, easy to be hit. He doesn't really have great defense. I think this Neves is just going to knock him out, and I just don't really know what more to say. I just wasted 3.5 minutes of you guys' time. I'm really sorry. I'm picking Neves KO in the first round. Michael Parkin's got a lot of experience, but it's experience against guys that just aren't high level. I don't trust that. I'm trusting Eduardo Neves to win by KO on this one. He's going to get a contract for sure. And, yeah, I think he's definitely going to get a contract. UFC needs heavyweights, and I think Neves is going to be a good addition to the roster.